name is Lon Safko, co-author of the Social Media Bible, published by John Wiley & Sons, the largest book ever written on the subject of social media. And today we're here with Amada Vega, President and CEO of Vega & Associates. And today we'll be speaking about social media and, more importantly, comment marketing, which Amanda is awesome at. That's what her company specializes in. And she has a marketing and public relations company here in Phoenix, New York, and one in China. Is that correct, Amanda?
That's correct. Shanghai.
Totally cool. So let's get started. So, Amanda, please tell our listeners a little bit about your background, who you are, what you're doing, what your company does, and kind of an overview of what comment marketing is.
So I'm Amada Vega, as Lon said, from Amada Vega Consulting. You can read more about all this stuff in great detail, since I like to write a lot, on amadavega.com. Personally, I've been in the interactive space for about 17 years now. I started out as the 22nd employee of AOL, where I was a lowly chat moderator at the age of 15. Yeah. So I got to start my career doing what all teenagers like to do, chatting online and then filling out reports about what people were chatting about.
Cool, that's cool.
Yeah, moved my way up from there, and then, let's see, the company now, this is my third company. I sold the second one to Ogilvy and Mather some years ago. And then started this one, which we kind of consider the anti-agency, because it's a true consulting firm that happens to provide services that mimic those of some agencies. Like you said, the offices for this company are in Phoenix, New York City, and Shanghai. We specialize in interactive marketing applications such as search engine optimization, public relations that's integrated, and social media management. Social media specifically, there's a team of 32 across 15 countries right now that do social media management above and beyond just blogging and podcasting. So it's about the conversations and then all the nerdy stuff that tags them to make them kind of have their own wings and spread from there.
That's pretty cool, because social media is about building network on a global basis. And if I just heard correctly, you say you have 32 people around the world, or the entire globe, that are working on social media, probably using social media tools themselves.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because what we've discovered throughout the years is that while social media itself is kind of global in nature, it's the conversations through blogs and podcasts and people posting things on YouTube and the bevy of conversations that happen from that the uses of social media across the world can be different, whereas, U.S. bound and most of Europe, you see heavy use of MySpace and Facebook, but in countries like Korea and Japan, they have their own little segmented versions of those two types of things. And then, more importantly, when you start dealing with Korea and also Africa and some of your other southern European nations, they actually don't focus any of their social media through computers, because they just don't even have laptops at their disposal, especially in Africa. So everything is done through their mobile phone, and it's a way of life for them. So they're actually way more active than the U.S. market, but just on a whole different level. So you have to start looking at what are the social networking spaces, and then what are the means and ways that they use to do their blogging and their comment marketing and their communications just via the phone. So you see a lot more use of short messaging and a lot more snippets of conversation with tiny links and things like that. So it's really interesting and fun.
And that's one of the things that I keep hearing throughout these interviews. I was lucky enough to interview Kevin Marks from Google, who is working on Open Social, and he brought up the whole idea of this international community, because so often we just think of the U.S. as U.S.-centric, that everything social media is all about us, America. And we got to get out of that, because it really is international. And he was discussing some of the cultural differences between things like MySpace and some of the other websites. But I didn't even think about what you just said. You're absolutely right. That whole mobile technology, where people can't afford laptops, also changes the way we interface.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's really cool. I love those kinds of insights.
You actually see, on a global perspective, I think, more of what truly is comment marketing and social media throughout those countries than you do, I think, in the U.S., for sure. Because that's how, much like we exchange simple text messages back and forth, and you see that as part of our society. If you think it's frustrating here, it's like you said, it's a way of life. It's a constant deluge of communication back and forth, and as quickly as we shoot text messages off to each other personally, they use their text messaging to post across multiple social networks and to do commenting, and they're much quicker with their their keystrokes and can create tags much quicker than we do, and to them it's second nature, whereas to us, we're actually behind in that sort of communication.
And that's interesting because you have to take all your clients' information and completely consider the format if you're going to be marketing it to mobile-intensive areas.
Absolutely.
Wow. Based on your experience, I know you've been doing this for a really long time, and you're also really good at conventional marketing and public relations. And over the last couple of years, as social media kind of crept its way into marketing and public relations, what kind of changes, what kind of insights, what specifically have you seen change, like with your customers? How do you change in the way you do business and the way you do business with your customers using social media?
You know what, I think in terms of the way that they're marketing, what you've seen is an influx of, 10 years ago, you saw the first actual adoption of the corporate website as a way of doing marketing, and that's not when it first started, right? I mean, we had websites well before that, almost 10 years before that as well. But it was later in the mix where it was like, okay, we have to have a website, and people started thinking through why you were having it instead of just say, well, of course we're going to have a website. We're not sure what we're going to use it for, but we should have one because everybody else does.
Yep.
You're kind of seeing that now with social media. 10 years ago, social media in the breadth of what it was defined as was purely blogging and podcasting, and it really didn't even have this name, social media, back then. You had blogs and podcasts at the beginning were only voice, and then you had video podcasts for a while, so then they were calling it vlogging and all this stuff, but now we kind of bucket it all. So for the clients, what happens is they have to pay attention to, more conversations. So before it was just a customer base, back when you were just dealing in traditional brochures and handouts and, your investor relations meetings and your press releases and things like that. Well, now they have to adhere to a bigger group of standards, how, each of the communications tools and sites out there have their own kind of nuances and laws that are kind of run by the masses. They have to pay attention to that, and, they can't shy away from it. And what we've seen is, there's still a struggle, I think, especially with larger companies who see social media as an ad campaign conduit instead of an ongoing way of doing business. So, like you were saying, it's a business shift. It has to change at the company culture level and not be seen as just an advertising gig. and it's also, made them more accountable for their opinions and give companies the personalities. And sometimes that's uncovered some negative things for companies that have, old ways of thinking and doing business, and we've seen it to where, brands are kind of, under a microscope now. So you can't run from it anymore, although some think that they can, where it's the old, early PR rules of thumb where, like, if there's negative things going on, just ignore it and they'll go away, kind of like the bully in school when your parents told you that. In social media, what we find is if you ignore it, it just gets worse because it just fires people up. So
that's a really, really good point. You can't ignore it. And you also pointed out what I heard you say is the similarities between the way corporations are adopting social media today as the way they were adopting the Internet 10 years ago, and we were just simply throwing up brochureware because we didn't know what else to do with it, but we knew that if we didn't do something, that our competitor would do something and we would kind of miss out. And I'm seeing that same kind of lack of enthusiasm, also fear for a lack of control. What are my employees saying? What are the blogs saying? How do I control it? But the cool thing that I've experienced is it kind of monitors itself and it keeps everybody kind of honest.
Yeah, I think that if people truly adopt it with the premise of actually wanting to do it not as just kind of an add-on on a checklist of marketing things that can be done, then it actually can streamline a lot of the work and help perfect your product, especially with products, right? I guess the same is probably true of services, but we've seen it more with products. Historically what you would do to launch a product or to do version 2.0 of a product, you'd have to call in and pay for really expensive marketing research groups, right? So you're looking like an outbound sit of, in-house for about $50,000 to do this, whereas, which always, no matter how much they cut it, is always going to skew lightly towards the good part of, commentary, just because, these people are being paid to give you opinion. They know that this is the company paying for it, no matter how hard you try to hide it and say be objective. Now, if you let things kind of feed out there and let people have the conversation, something as simple as opening up your knowledge base, right, and letting people comment or using a wiki and things like that, you can actually get hundreds of thousands of dollars of market research for basically what is free, right, aside from people's time to monitor and crunch the data and then make decisions to the company based on what changes should happen within a product or a service. And so, if you approach it the right way and, like you said, with the right attitude and with the heart, then this becomes a whole medium that gives you more insight to your company than you've actually ever been able to garner before through traditional means.
Yeah, and that, again, a good point. When I was first trying to come up with the original design of the Social Media Bible, I thought it was going to be another 250-page business book. Then we threw it out, and about 1,000 people actually participated in looking at the design, and they told us, no, we don't want just another business book. There's a ton of them out there. We want all of the tools. What the heck is it? Tell me everything I need to know. Then give me a list of all of the companies that are doing it, and then the most important part is the strategy part. How do I actually apply it? And when we saw this, we've never seen two business books kind of sandwiching a user's guide. That was amazing. You can't get that in research. I would have never figured it out, but that's what the people wanted. And you know what? All you have to do is ask your customers.
Absolutely. Well, because that's the key to the success of the Social Media Bible, is that it's not one of these business proposition of the week type of books. It's a full reference guide. And that's going to be key because, again, what you're not doing is saying, I'm the only expert in this. It's about being the experts of the masses and how they all work together. And, again, what you've got is there's always these people that are going to protect themselves and say, well, I am the MySpace expert, and I'm the LinkedIn expert, and I'm the blogging guy, and things like that, and, oh, my blog gets this many readers. But at the end of the day, even the very concept of the Social Media Bible is social media in nature, and that's the key to it, and that's what's going to have people embrace it. Because, like you said, there's so many tools out there. I know that when we check, there's over 250 different tools that are just related to comment marketing, social book marketing, things like that, to give conversations their wings, that there's just no way that you could handle them all at the same time. And then the questions become, well, how do you know when to use this, when to use that? And I think that the book is going to provide, kind of the breadth of it, right? It'll end up being one of those books that we take to clients, as a sales model, too, to say, look, bam, here's the book. This is what we're monitoring. It's not, your profile on MySpace that we're throwing up there and your corporate blog inside of your website. It's all of these things that have to be managed and on a daily basis. So I think it's great that people are coming together because it's about the masses, and it's kind of a neat thing if you think about it. Social media is lending itself to the largest sense of collaboration out there, and if you use it the right way, people are more than happy to offer up their expertise and their help most of the time for free or just for a little bit of recognition.
Yeah, we've been getting tremendous support. And by the way, thank you for that observation. I'm not pretending to be an expert in any one of the categories. I think that would be kind of foolish even to say that. I'm not an expert. What I am is an aggregator. Take a look at and bring in, as you just said, bring in all the experts who really are experts in one particular field. And if we can put them all in one place, that's kind of what the goal is. Kind of like, the real Bible, if you would. Nobody actually wrote it or was an expert, but they compiled all of the best information of the time.
Yeah.
How did comment marketing specifically, because I love that terminology and I really love what you do, how did comment marketing affect your clients? How do you bring it to them and explain to them what it is? If they asked you, what the heck is comment marketing, how would you kind of describe that?
I wish there was one quick sentence that would describe it. Because historically it used to be about your blog and you pushing conversation, right? It's like that consummate public speaker that talks at you, and we say that basically that's outdated, and now, at the end of all of it, right, the idea and the goal for any client, whether it's, to increase sales or visibility or whatever, really what they're trying to do is become subject matter experts within their space to then garner sales, better marketing, better reach, better brand, so on and so forth. So comment marketing basically is the whole concept of you can't just push your conversation out there. Other people are having the conversation related to your area of expertise. And if you don't participate throughout all of those conversations and kind of stake your claim, add to the conversation, clarify things that you either disagree with or that you agree with, and use those to point back to who you are and what your capacity is, then you're not having a two-way conversation, which is what this whole thing is about. So you can't, there's a lot of social media companies out there that we come across as competitors, when you look at their offerings, what they're doing is they're putting up a blog, they're putting up a podcast, they're setting up social networking profiles, and then calling it a day. And that's only half of the battle, and actually it's the easiest part of the battle. You can get that done in a day. That's not the bread and butter. It's not even making sure that there's content on those things once a week or more. What it is what are other people saying about the same subject, and how are you participating in that conversation, so that eventually what happens is all of your commentary all across the web, you're participating in hundreds of conversations, then basically all point back to you, so that when someone does search for your service or your product, or for you as a speaker, or you as an author, or something like that, that it all pulls back to you and says, you know what? Hey, Lon Safko is always talking about social media, so you know what? He's got to be an expert, because we see his conversations in all sorts of territories, which, we try to explain to clients, too, because I think they approach it sometimes thinking of it just like PR, right? We get public relations clients that come in and we say, okay, let's talk about where you'd like to see your name in print or on TV. And you know what? Every time, it's always two, right?
Yep.
I think we've talked about this before.
Right.
Everybody wants to be on Oprah, and everybody wants to be in the Wall Street Journal.
Yep.
and to a lot of traditional PR clients, that would be the be-all, end-all. That's it. They could go to bed, shut up the company, that's it. That's all they're looking for. But the reality is that you could have 100 other stories written about you in relatively small, even newsletters or local, newspapers and things like that. And at the end of the day, if it reaches your target reader, it actually may be better for you than some of those large-scale publications. So when we go into clients, we explain that to them and say, so at the end of the day, you could pull a simple RSS feed of a keyword that is important to that company, and then see, there's 10,000 conversations being had in a day. Now, do you actually have to participate in all of them? Maybe not, because you're going to have the keywords that are kind of just mindlessly related. But there could be 1,000, and it could be 1,000, and you know what? Hey, only 15 people read that guy's blog, so why is it important? Is what we get. Well, you know what? Out of those 15 people, if his blog is narrowly focused on what you provide, then you know what? Those are 15 potential buyers, and you need to participate. And you can't think of it in terms of a scale of importance. Like it's more important to be Scobalized than it is to be on, Annie Mae's blog about, fudge or whatever it could be. While you do have that division of, what are the highest end and what are kind of the creme of the crop, right? Everyone knows if you get Scobalized, chances are your product's going to have a really big pickup in eyeballs, just like being, if you appear on Mashable. It's a good thing. But that's not to say that the other ones as a whole don't equal the sum of what the big one is.
And that's a really great insight. When I had a previous company, technology company, I developed the first computer to save a human life, and we helped physically disabled. And we did an article. We were actually featured in Popular Science, which was distributed around the world, the entire globe. Matter of fact, the first time I saw it, I was in Manchester, England, on the newsstands. And I thought, boy, this was, like you say, the end-all story. The reality is that I got 5 telephone calls as a result of that and never made a sale.
Right.
So you're right. It really is about participation and not pushing that PR or pushing that marketing message the way we used to do. Without mentioning any names, before our interview started, you had mentioned like one of the biggest no-nos, one of the worst things that you can do on LinkedIn that you just saw somebody do. Could you just kind of summarize what that was?
Yeah, I got a request to connect on LinkedIn by, first of all, someone that I didn't know and have never heard of, which is kind of a, LinkedIn has its own, it stood apart, right? It's always been kind of the business user social network, and the beauty of LinkedIn has always been the fact that, you won't just pass along anything, right? Your network is protected by the people within your network. There's a lot of times that, we'll request some information or a meeting, and it gets point blank turned down, even if it has all good, intentions behind it. Just because people are tired of being blasted. But when things do get passed along, it's nice because then it's like, oh, hey, Lon wants to meet with this person, and Amanda knows Lon, and I trust Amanda, so therefore, okay, she probably wouldn't waste my time with talking to Lon, so I'll take it. But this morning I had a request for someone who I've never even heard of who basically put a sales proposition together inside of the LinkedIn request. It was like, I'd like to connect with you. Here's what I offer. You'll remember me from this. And, I would offer, here you can go to my website and look at what I do, and then I can send you a free brochure. And, don't forget to book me for this, this, and this, and think of me when your clients need this. And it's the complete wrong use of LinkedIn. And I basically wrote a nice note back and said, this may sound harsh, but you basically completely bastardized the whole LinkedIn concept, and you're likely to, get stoned and, and someone's going to pull that and blog about it, which then is going to create a reputation issue because you misuse the whole concept of LinkedIn, and people are very protective of that, and they're very vocal, right? Which leads you back to the, going into it, it's nerve-wracking for some clients because, you make a misstep, and it can be publicly broadcast, right? I guarantee there's going to be somebody today that mentions that person directly related to their misuse of LinkedIn, specifically because they claim to know social media. And that was just a clear, you don't know anything about social media if you use that as your sales tool. Not to say that you can't use social media as a sales tool. However, you have to know how to do it with grace and with ethics and within the rules that are set by each of the individual social networks, by each of the different social bookmarking sites. I mean, there's just all these little nuances. It's like, it's like knowing which fork to use at dinner and which parties you can go wearing, slacks, and others that you better be wearing a black cocktail dress, right? It's those types of things that we manage.
Well, I had the pleasure of interviewing Krista Canfield from LinkedIn. She's the PR manager, and all throughout that interview, she stressed the fact that the reason LinkedIn is a success is because the value that it brings, the integrity, if you would, of those links.
Absolutely.
And here's another thing that was kind of interesting about participating. Participating in the blogosphere, getting out there and getting recognized, not pushing your message, but being recognized as an expert. Can you tell me just a little bit, as much as you can share with us in this interview? You found a blog that you thought that a particular company a marketing company really wasn't taking advantage of what they should be doing, and you simply blogged about it, and then they contacted you, and instead of it becoming inflammatory, it actually resulted in a relationship?
Yeah, we actually, it's our favorite case study in social media, right? It's our favorite one to take to clients and to talk about. We actually saw a traditional campaign happening over television that was, amazing. And actually, I guess we're allowed to say who it is now. So now it's for LG Electronics, and their agency of record is agency.com. They're in charge of all digital display. And basically they had a campaign called the Scarlet Series, which was made to look like an upcoming television show. And I thought the creative was amazing, and I was hooked, thinking that it was a TV show, and was on my TiVo trying to see when it was in the fall lineup, and would check. And every time I saw the commercial, I got excited and said, this looks interesting. It looks like a, kind of a CSI meets, an Alias or something like that. And it turned out I was just monitoring the feeds, actually, just through my feed list every day, and there was the announcement that agency.com had revealed that it wasn't actually a TV series, it was a series of TVs, and that the whole thing was just an ad campaign. So I kind of did some more searching online and couldn't find anything other than the press release that was put over the newswire. I couldn't find the Scarlet website or anything like that, so I used it as my weekly blog on our company website, and just kind of said, this was amazing. I spend a lot of time on my blog talking about, where agencies fail and where they're not meeting the needs of the clients in this day and age, especially with social media. So I kind of gave it to my readers and said, okay, you know what? I'm not always complaining here. This is a great example of when you hire an ad agency. The concept, the creative is amazing. It's insightful, and it hooked me, and it made me pay attention, and now I'm going to follow it, and they basically captured me for 3 months of my life, which is more than most, TV ads can do. But then I, left a codicil to the note saying, however, they kind of missed the mark. Where was the social media? Why were there not user groups? Why weren't they talking about this on social networks? Why were they not creating groups or even setting up little groups to help spread the word, even if it was transparent to the end user?
Yeah, there's no buzz.
But they kind of missed what could have been, a million more eyeballs or more versus their TV buys, and that the whole concept and the reveal of it would have gotten a lot of nature inside of, let's say, like, advertising-specific blogs that people read in my industry. You could have kind of sparked up a huge conversation, which not only would have helped LG, but would have helped agency.com. So I posted that blog and just kind of, said, kudos, but here's what we would have done differently. And within 24 hours, we actually had the agency and the president of LG out of Korea. So all the way across the world, our little agency, one blog post, captured the attention of a major client saying, well, wait a minute, what she's saying correct? What could we have done differently? Alerted the agency, and so you thought for sure, oh gosh, this is going to start a big battle, which is fine. Again, that's what it's all about. It's challenging each other. But instead, the agency emailed me offline and said, okay, tell me more. Tell me more about what your recommendations would have been. We'd like to hear. And, of course, we're saying, well, we're not going to give you all of it because that's what we get paid to do, but we'd be happy to give you some overview. And basically, through conversations that were sparked from that one blog post, a thoughtful blog post about something that interested me, we ended up going to meet with them and have picked up work with LG to help, fix what is their social media challenges. So it's turned into, one of our biggest partnerships with the big agency and some of our best work. And, what we're doing is really kind of revisiting, and they came back to us and said, but there is a MySpace and there's a Facebook, and we posted all these things on YouTube. And we said, well, one, they're not found because they're not properly tagged. And two, you didn't respond to anyone who commented on these YouTube videos. So you've actually created a social media kind of nightmare in the process. So we need to clean this up, and you need to think about these things next time you go down this road. And I guess it kind of brought to attention that, again, here's a big agency that does great work, but they can't just use social media as an afterthought or as a plug-in for traditional advertising. It now becomes a bigger responsibility that, absolutely creates a lot more work for agencies and a lot more work in arenas that they're a little trepidatious about going into. It is the reality, though. You can't ignore it because you're missing out on eyeballs, and, then your brand can become seen as old and stodgy. And with electronics especially, you can't, that would be like a killer, right?
Yeah, geez. Well, the exciting thing about this is this is the type of stuff that you do for your clients. And in your off time, you just kind of do it recreationally, and that actually resulted in a client for you. So what better proof to your clients that it works than the fact that it actually worked for you? Well,
and it goes back to on the public relations side of things, just like social media. It's funny because our best case studies are those where, I guess it goes back and proves the point that it can't be seen as advertising, and you have to really kind of be authentic in your conversations. Mm-hmm. We always say that, much like your example of the Scientific American, we obviously do a lot of PR, and I'm quoted in Brand Week and Ad Age, and I've been in the Wall Street Journal and all these great things, and I just thought, the Wall Street Journal, wow, this is great, this is what every client wants, this must be amazing for us, and we've had all these quotes in all of our industry magazines, all over the internet, things like that. They really don't result necessarily in sales. However, an article written about the fact that I'm an avid surfer in Surfrider magazine 10 years ago, and here's a girl who's surfing and talking about, how board shorts don't fit and so on and so forth, just a cute personal article because it was a hobby of mine. We actually picked up 3 big clients from that article. So it goes back to if you're authentic and you really participate and kind of put yourself out there, that those are the things that result in business. Because at the end of the day, we always say, when you get home from a busy day, you spent 12 hours in the office, your phone's ringing, you're trying to eat dinner. If you have a spouse or kids, you're trying to find 5 minutes to spend with them. Yep. If you're sitting down, finally, what do you pick up? Do you pick up your trade publication, or do you pick up, People magazine or Sports Illustrated or Playboy or whatever it is?
Brain candy.
The reality is we all pick up what interests us, right? For me, it's gossip rags, Yep. My Ad Age will sit there for 4 weeks, and I have to read them all in one sit, right? But you know what? When Us Weekly comes in the mail, that's what I'm reading on the treadmill. So the reality is, too, is that, it goes back to what we were talking about. Those conversations can't be just sales conversations. They're just personality, right? When CEOs at big companies want to put up a blog and just talk about, well, today at the company we did great things, because we always do great things, and we wouldn't dare do anything that's not great, and, thanks for listening. And you're like, wow, that really... Okay, so you retook the brochure that I had. It's not interesting. But if you show a little bit of personality saying, hey, by the way, I'm the CEO of this major company. Did you know that, this past weekend I just hosted a big dinner that was raising money for charity, and we raised $1 million for the National Arthritis Foundation, and here's some pictures linked to my photo bucket or whatever, showing some of that. Again, an authentic conversation that's passionate from that CEO, but the likelihood of them getting recognized by somebody else for the first time, is pretty high because you've actually related to a subject that's more appeasable to other people. And again, it's just another valuable inbound link.
And that's what's engaging.
Yeah.
That's how you engage your potential clients.
Well, it's kind of like conversations, right? It's all about two-way conversations. You and I wouldn't sit across from each other and have a meeting and me be going, well, we sell social media and comment marketing and then you're like, well, I'm writing I'm writing the social media Bible. I'm an author. I've done this. And if that was our only conversation is pimping out our wares back and forth, it wouldn't be a conversation at all. It would be kind of annoying.
And there would never be a second conversation.
What?
There would never be a second conversation.
No, it wouldn't. And the same thing applies in social networking. And I think that's what scares people maybe, is that you used to be able to hide behind your computer, and now you have to almost expose yourself as you would inside of a cocktail party where you don't know anybody.
And I like that, because when companies start to do that, that's where they really build trust.
Yeah.
So lastly, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners about comment marketing and your experiences with blogs and social media? Is there any way you want to kind of summarize what your experiences have been?
You know, with specific to comment marketing, I think that what listeners should understand is that pulling the feeds and monitoring conversations inside of your industry expertise and also your personal passions. In terms of pulling the feeds, it's easy. You know what? It doesn't cost anything. You can use My Yahoo, you can use Yahoo Pipes, you can use the Google RSS feeds, things like that. But that you do need to dedicate a staff person or your own time, which, again, we already talked about how limited that is, but you need to monitor it daily. And when you're commenting, make sure that you're not just pumping out your wares. You're not just, going to a website where someone's talking about a subject matter that ties into your offerings and then just saying, well, we do that. Here's a link to our website. At the same time, though, you should be well-versed in how to properly use social bookmarking, tools, how to dig, how to dego, how to make sure you do the right tags and clouds and so on and so forth. And that's what we end up telling people separates our agency from the rest of them, is that it's all about that technology and how that conversation gets legs versus just kind of sitting out in the middle of nowhere and having no value where no people pick it up. And I think that comment marketing and social media management should be truly about having the conversation and being honest about that conversation and let people, even say negative things, because that, it's very transparent when you only let the good comments come through. Just like you would never only say good things to your friends. You would point out, obviously in a gracious way, you would point out where flaws are or challenges are. And again, it helps everyone else. And the likelihood of you also getting that in reciprocity from somebody else is it's highly more likely if you're participating across the board as well.
So really, the best advice to companies is really make a commitment to participation.
Yeah. Make it a priority to participate. I mean, take the first hour of your day, just like you do your email, pull your feeds and read them and see what's going on. You don't have to comment every single day. I mean, we see lots of things come across in our industry because it's probably the biggest one, right? We're pulling feeds on social media. Imagine how many links that is a day. But, sometimes it's a sparked conversation. You don't have to feel pressure that you have to say something, but again, if something kind of, makes sense, then participate. Just comment. And a comment only has to be like a sentence long. It's not that hard.
Cool. So, Amanda, can you tell our listeners where they can find out more information about what you do and more about comment marketing? You have a website or?
Yeah, you can look up everything on the website at www.amandavega.com, and you can also see our book at www.prinajar.com.
That's a great book, by the way, the PR. I love that. I love it. Okay.
It's the PR for dummies, dummies.
Yeah, it really is a great summary. It's
easy.
Yeah, anybody who does marketing and PR, you got to get this book. I think it's awesome. Okay, well, Amanda, truly and honestly, thank you so much for those insights. I think they were terrific. And every time I talk to you, I just learn like 100 new things. I've been taking notes through the whole presentation. I'll be sure to listen to this again, by the way.
Well, great. That's good. And keep aggregating them. See, I think your book's going to be awesome because you're taking something very traditional and making it social, which is key. And I think that's where, during your marketing of your book, Tell Wiley, that's the whole spin. It's right there.
That's great.
It's the first book written using social media. That's awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that insight more than even the rest. Thank you. Well, this has been Lon Safko, the co-author of the Social Media Bible. Be sure to check out our other valuable social media tactics, tools, and strategies that can be found in the Social Media Bible book and at our website, thesocialmediabible.com. For more information about me or to learn how I can speak at your company, please visit my website for my background at www.lonsafko.com. And again, Amanda, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Lon.